For starters, actually, one thing I realized, obviously you've met and spoken several times. I've never actually said your name because when I spoke to you in person properly, I was a little bit under the influence, and so I was like, hey, bro, good to see.
Yeah, that was. So I go by Onye, so Onye, but also Onye for short.
Yeah,
but it's short for something a lot longer, which we're not even going to get into. It's very long.
You can't say one, but you gotta let them know.
So my full name is Onye.
Yep.
Which is short, which is Nigerian for Igbo for he who is like God.
Oh, nice.
So that's the basic meaning for it. So I either shorten it to Onye or Onye just for short.
Yeah, no, fair. I gotta say, I genuinely do love Nigerian names. Like, I'm not picking Nigeria over Ghana, which is that's where I'm looking. However, I will say,
so you're with the Ghanaian jollof as well, then.
Of course, the best one, of course. But I will say, you guys have some fantastic names because I've got some Nigerian family, like obviously kind of married into the family, and it just I love the names. I love the meaning behind them. They're very poetic. But anyway,
yeah.
So for starters, I just want to say, so obviously I brought you on today. I already know a bit about what you do, but for the people listening and watching, who is Onye and what do you do? Because you've got you've got a very interesting life. Like I know you from one thing, but then your actual main job is something completely different.
Exactly.
And they both require I don't know how you balance them both. So who are you essentially, and what do you do?
So pretty much for work, what you mean by that? For work, I'm a pathology scientist. So I do a lot of testing of bloods, samples, COVID samples. I also do collections, and that's actually my full-time job. So a lot of people, they always ask me, do you do this content creation as a full-time? Is that your full-time job? But it's actually something I still do for fun. Like I still do. I don't see it as my job. It's just something I really enjoy doing, and it's something I picked up during lockdown because I think in lockdown everyone was extremely bored. No one was working. So in lockdown, I just picked that up. I really loved making videos when I was a bit younger, and going into like pathology and going into science, I sort of dropped everything. I sort of became a little bit more of a logical person and just sort of shoved my creative side bit to the side.
Yeah.
But during lockdown, it was really good to just pick that up again and explore what I really enjoy doing, which is I just like to create. I love to create. I love to make things look cinematic.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what I do. I play a lot of sport as well, basketball, tennis. So it's only this content creation thing that I've started doing. I think it was the second half of last year that I really started to focus on it more.
Let me just say for starters, I love the fact that you do it for fun and that you started it for fun, because obviously I assumed you enjoyed the content creation. You do it so frequently and at a consistent point. I didn't necessarily think you weren't enjoying it, but I was like just kind of watching it. I'm like, oh, what? Like, how are you able to kind of crank these out so regularly? And obviously now from your influence in your platform, which is obviously grown heaps from when you started. Like, you're obviously getting kind of endorsements and stuff like that, and people are approaching you and deals and everything like that. So, being as this is a hobby, and something you enjoy, what is it actually been like now having businesses kind of approach you and stuff like that? And has that changed your relationship with it a little bit?
With having businesses approach me with it, I still sort of keep it very fun. I try to keep it as an influencer who makes fun of being an influencer. So if I do something, I'll always try and put my flavor on it, put my spin on it. I don't take myself too seriously, so I don't take it as seriously as maybe some other people do.
Yeah.
But I always make sure to keep it relatable. So most of my videos are, if something happens to me in that day or that week, I'll put it to the back of my mind, and that's how I'm able to crank out that content. I'm just trying to find new experiences and new things to do, and I've just gotten a lot quicker at doing it. Like when I started, I was doing it because I really loved doing it, but then I got better at finding ideas and then putting it across as well. It just came with practice, just like any good thing.
Yeah, but definitely. It's crazy how much there's kind of like skill sets, talents, etc. But it's crazy how much at the end of the day it's consistency that always.
It's just consistency. I always tell people, just stick to it. You might not have your first video pop off. You might not have your second, but if you just keep on going consistently, someone somewhere will see it and they'll share it to their friends, and then those friends will share it to their friends, and it was also not a numbers game for me. I just did it because I thought this video was funny. So make the video for yourself first. And then I was actually very surprised when a lot of people started to like the content and to follow the content, because I was just making videos that made me laugh. Sometimes I'll make the video and I'll look at it and I'll laugh at it myself and forget to even post it sometimes.
No, that's fair. And again, I love that. Like it's like, because as someone who is kind of in like doing creating stuff, kind of quote unquote, as my kind of more full-time stuff. I'm a videographer by day. Obviously, I've got this radio show, the YouTube channel, all this kind of stuff, right? It's it can be hard sometimes to just create for yourself when it kind of like you want that to always be the point from which you create, but sometimes you can get lost in doing it for this, that, and the other. And so I love the fact that even at the level you're doing it, it's still fun, and and fun still comes first. From that, because there are kind of two ways I could even go with that. But I'll start with, oh man, I could literally go. See, I've got my list of questions in front of me. Yeah, I'm already going off them. I knew I wasn't going to obey them, but it's already thinking. What has it been like, actually kind of having your profile grow? Because from my standpoint, right, Australia is still a small place, and one thing I like about me being here personally is that, like, I feel that, like, if I put enough work in now, people will know who I am in not too long, in response to like a London or like
in the future
or something like that. And so I'm sure that you're getting to a point now where people are beginning to kind of know who you are. Has that been happening? And if so, what's that been like?
Yeah, well, at first it was just even just brands reaching out to me in the first place. I felt very humbled. I was like, I'm grateful they're reaching out to me. They recognize what I'm putting out and they want to work with me. But it was very weird at first. Even I remember, because I did all my things during lockdown. So obviously you're not going out, you're not seeing people. So I think it was the first weekend that restrictions were eased. When I went out, that was the first time I was recognized outside of this little space that I've been creating content. Outside of my little apartment, I was outside in a bar, in clubs, and having people recognize me. I remember I was sitting at Darling Harbour. I was just waiting for my friends. I was on my phone, and someone came up to me, and of course I'm not used to it. I thought they're coming up to ask for a cigarette, asking for a lighter. And someone walked up to me and just said, "Are you that guy that makes TikToks?" And for a second, I thought to myself, wait, yeah, that is me. That is something I do right now. So it was really different having people come up and recognize who you are. And I didn't actually realize how many people were viewing my things now. Of course, when the profile starts to grow, especially since I'm starting to grow on both TikTok and Instagram, it's really nice I really like it when people do come up and show your love. And I said, yeah, let's have a conversation, because you're someone that follows me, you're someone that enjoys my stuff.
That's fascinating, man. And I mean, you said it was humble. It was very it's kind of humbling, kind of seeing all these kind of responses like in real life. Has it also kind of brought a sense of intimidation? And while that might be a bit of a heavy phrase, the only reason why I asked is because obviously at this point, like, you're a guy of influence. Now, it might not necessarily be to the level of like some super celebrity, but it's like now it's like people are watching you, and obviously you can control what you put out. However, it's beginning to get to the point where you go somewhere and people kind of, oh, what's he doing? You know what I mean? Yeah. And so so far, having that kind of attention on you, has that been generally good so far, or do you begin to feel a little bit of pressure, a little bit of an itch so far, or is it kind of still?
Yeah, I do start to feel. I've actually lately. I've started going out and having to consider how I paint myself in a light. Say if I want to go out to an event just for fun, I'm not hosting, I'm not doing anything. say I just want to go out with my friends and have a fun time. I like to have a fun time. I like to drink. I like to drink a little bit. But you also have that thing in the back of your mind that there might be someone here that's able to they'll take a photo, they'll take a video, and they can post it on their story or share it to their friends. So there is that sense of having a lot of eyes on me when I'm out, but I don't let it influence how I act too much, because I like to keep my social media and how I actually am as a person quite similar. So what you see on social media and in my videos is what you see when you see me out. I want to keep them very similar, because I know a lot of people like switch into a social media personality, but I still want to keep it quite consistent between the both of them. But it has been a lot harder to still be myself, but be wary that there are eyes on me as well.
I really love that mentality. That's actually a mentality that I personally quite agree with as well, in terms of basically keeping who you, it's kind of like it's not as deep as this, but I kind of link it almost to like integrity, basically, like being the same person,
staying true to yourself.
Exactly, being the same person that you are there. Recently, I know personally, like particularly the last few months, I've been very big on like, and obviously without going to TMI, I've been like, I'm not gonna share my deepest, darkest stuff, but like, if I'm not having a good time, for example, me personally, I'm trying to be honest about it. I'm trying to be open about it, just because it's very easy to kind of have a perception. And so basically, I say that to say that that whole thing of like wanting to be the same person on social media that you are in real life, that's something that I very much agree with. I think it's a very healthy outlook on it.
Like my things are very like high, like my content is very high energy. It can be very high energy sometimes, but I do like to show that more chill side, which is what I would tend to gravitate towards if I'm not having a good time. If I'm not having a good time, I'll still enjoy it for what it is, but I wouldn't be as hype, I wouldn't be as active as I would be, say, another time I'm just enjoying myself. No, so that's why I show those different sides in my content as well. I like to be very high energy, but I can be very chill as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to take it back a little bit to obviously being a pathologist. Is it pathology scientist or pathologist scientist?
Pathology scientist. Pathology scientist.
Yeah. And so again, like when you said that's what you did full time, I was both very surprised and simultaneously unsurprised. I won't say I was unsurprised. I was generally surprised, but then I was also like, you're a Nigerian guy living in Australia, so I'm sure you worked.
That's
hard.
the usual direction. The parents always say you have to be a doctor, you have to be an engineer. Like that's the way you gotta go.
And so obviously you're dealing with COVID samples. So I mean, like at the moment, you've got one of the busiest jobs in the country at the moment.
Yes.
Like are you guys and I won't speak my political views too hard, but I mean they're definitely, from what I've seen, from my humble position, you guys have not been getting the kind of support, funding, backing that you need to deal with the volume of things that you're dealing with right now. And so I want to ask two questions. We'll take it back first. How did you get into pathology science? And what has it been like working in that field now?
So in uni, I studied clinical science. So that was dealing with things like anatomy. We did a lot of blood work as well in that course. And then I graduated last year. So straight after graduation, I just started applying to places. Started looking for jobs, because obviously I was wanting to go on to medicine. But you're just applying for different things, seeing if you can step up in that sort of medical field first. So I found this pathology job with Foresight. And because through uni and through school, I've always been through uni and school, I was always a very logical person. I'm very pragmatic. I like to look at things and actually try and figure it out. So in pathology, it's very much like that. So we're always getting samples. We're always getting, because I collect as well. So if you've ever had a swab shoved down your nose, I'm one of those guys. That's always collecting the samples. But it has been really, especially even during lockdown, I was still working. I was lucky enough to still be working, because obviously you have to test all these samples coming in. So I was working during lockdown, and it was extremely busy. And especially now, a lot of because I work a lot of night shifts. That's how I'm able to balance the two. I do content during the day, and then I do go to work at night.
Yeah.
Especially now, there's been a lot of people who work on night shifts. They are getting sick and having to isolate. So there's shortage of staff. So that's why, especially after this trip I took to Melbourne, I needed to come back. I needed to pick up some extra shifts just to help carry the load a little bit overnight. But yeah, it has been really hard with funding and with people coming to work, because if there's no one there to test the samples, that's why the results are taking so long to come out.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of a strain on us as well, but we try as much as possible to get through all the work that we can.
Do you feel like people are recognizing that it's not you guys and it is the fact that you guys are under strain? Because I mean, for example, obviously you mentioned test results taking a while to come back. Like I had to get a test. It took 9 days, you know.
And when usually it takes 24. We usually take 24 hours to get the result back.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing though. I say that not to say that, oh, you guys weren't working hard enough, but I was very angry about it. But my anger again went kind of straight to the government. Like, how are you guys letting this happen? Like, you guys knew this spike was going to happen. Have you found that people have been quite understanding of the position you guys are in?
I think people they're understanding more, because people are realizing that businesses are short of staff. Rapid tests are hard to come by nowadays. So I think that people are starting to understand that maybe it's not the center's fault, because themselves, if we're sick, there's not really much we can do in terms of managing the workload. So I think lately, because people are seeing other businesses, maybe restaurants or bars or hospitality, because they're lower in numbers, the same would apply for the people who are actually testing and who are actually giving the results. Even GPs and doctors' offices, they are having to, because if you have workers having to isolate, that's one less person, two less people that are at work able to do the job. So it just extends that piece of work a little bit longer. But people have generally recently become more understanding of why a result takes so long to come back.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, you're doing God's work. You're doing God's work. I appreciate it. Have you managed to avoid to avoid the big run at this point?
I've been avoiding it bad. I don't know if you know, but I ran an event, like Cello, right before I left for Melbourne.
Yeah.
And that was a big sort of, a lot of people from there were had either scares or they actually did catch it. So I've been avoiding everything, wearing my mask, and even when I'm walking through crowded areas, I'm wearing my mask, because I don't want to get to the point where I have to isolate and not be able to go to work and not be able to get this job done. Because if I'm not able to go to work again, it increases the workload for people who are at work, and they're already struggling. They're already struggling a lot. So
no,
I've just been avoiding it every chance I get. I'm wearing my mask. I'm getting my tests done. Yeah,
I'm impressed, because obviously you're on the front line, so that's for you to avoid it out of everyone. I'm very impressed. I thought I could, but I mean it's done now. But it's
I've got the sanitizer. It's always going on. Always washing my hands. Always you gotta be careful. Even when I went home, I didn't want to even just catch it while I was in Melbourne as well. That was a big thing.
Yeah, definitely. And so the original question I was going to ask is, what's it like kind of balancing the two different kind of well, I said careers, but again, you can't, it's for you, it's more of a hobby, even though obviously it has popped off. But I guess what I'll phrase it differently. I'll say, because obviously at the moment you're working quite your main job is quite like a consistent, and intensity might be too strong of a word, but a very consistent, very like kind of strong workload, right? I guess the question I've got on it is, with what you do, is it the kind of thing where your work, or kind of what you see at work kind of comes home with you? And does that affect your kind of creativity as well? I mean, again, you've got quite a good routine right now, but even still, it's still quite a big load, you know what I mean? And that's not even including social life, everything else that you do.
That's sort of the good thing. When I go to work, not much of it comes home with me. So I've had jobs in the past where I would go to work and stresses and just other things would come home with me. So I'm not really coming home to rest. Whereas with working in pathology, I do feel that I can leave it all at work and then come home. I'm in my space, I'm in my oasis. I can create, I can think, I can like make content. I'm not having to worry about what's happening at work because they are two very separate things. With the pathology being very logical, and then the content creation being very creative and artistic. It is those two worlds that I can leave one when I leave the office at 12 a.m. in the morning. I can go home, sleep, wake up, and then be in the mind of that creative. And then I usually switch off into that logical mind around 3 or 4 o'clock when I have to go back to work the next day. So it's been really good. I think it's a good habit that I formed during lockdown as well. Lockdown was just a very good time to form these really good like time management habits and just balancing not two lives, but balancing two I would say like loves of my life together.
Yeah. I love that phrase too. No, that's really cool. And do you see yourself do you see yourself kind of in pathology science for a while, or are you kind of still hoping to kind of bump up to
Right now I'm still quite undecided. Like I do love what I'm doing in pathology, but I also really love doing what I'm doing in with my content creation. So I just want to see how far both of them go, really. I'm loving pathology right now because it's providing me just a time to actually use my brain for something logical. I'm essentially exercising both aspects and sides of my brain. I'm doing the creative and I'm doing logical thinking. So it's given me that really good balance. So I do see myself holding that for quite a while, seeing where this content creation takes me. If it takes me to a place where I do need to spend more time on it, because right now, because I'm having to balance the two, I'm having to time manage. So it's really comes down to what I enjoy doing more and what will pay off more for me in the long run.
No, makes sense. What was my next question? Then I'm coming off of that. Oh yes. So obviously, as well, I mean, one thing I've gotten a big impression from you, like from when I first like saw what you're doing, and from and from what you've been saying now, is that clearly like time management and kind of being organized about your time and what you do is like a big thing, because we haven't mentioned it in this interview yet, but you also do a little bit of personal training on the side. Obviously like you're quite into your fitness as well. Where does that kind of your organization and your kind of time management and discipline, where does that kind of come from you? Was that something that you kind of naturally had? Was that kind of from your parents as well? Because I know obviously Nigerian parents can be
Nigerian parents
can kind of be on it.
To be very honest with you, it's actually something I've picked up recently. I do like to keep clean spaces, and obviously when you keep a clean space, you keep a clean mind. But it's been something that I've actually had to learn over lockdown. I actually had to learn it over lockdown. I used to like being very organized, but I was very bad with time management, I would admit. That's had to be something, as I picked up more things that I actually enjoy doing, you find time to do it and you do it in the most efficient way you can. So that's something I picked up over lockdown. It wasn't something, I've never been the most organized person. I can be very forgetful, but lately, because I think I'm doing something that I feel very invested in it. So I don't want it to be wrong, and I want to do it in the best way possible. Whereas in the past, maybe I'm doing something that I'm doing half-heartedly. So I don't make the best time for it, and I don't put the time in that I need, and I can be very unorganized. It definitely hasn't been something that I haven't always been good at time management, but it is something I'm improving on a lot because I'm very invested in what I'm doing now.
You've actually touched on something really, really powerful, because a lot of people struggle with time management and organization, and the tendency is to kind of look at it as something that, it's something that just some people have. And so you saying that like, it was actually when I started doing things that are, that I actually am emotionally attached to and drawn to, that's when it kind of came. I actually think that's a really powerful thing to note, because like you said, it's very easy to lack time management and be not organized when you don't like what you're going to, or when you don't care. Like it's, you know, or it's and I actually think back to at the times when I was kind of, because sometimes my time management, it's getting better obviously in time, but I think of times when it was like kind of more poor, and then there were streaks when I was really on it, and it was when I was doing things that I enjoy.
You see the correlation, you see the relation.
It kind of snaps your brain into that mode. I know that's I know you kind of said it in passing, but I just think that's kind of a cool thing to kind of note. I want to take it back again. I want to take it now back to your upbringing, because obviously you've got a Nigerian background. Were you born and raised here, or were you born in Nigeria, came here like as like when you were young?
Yeah, so I was born in Australia, but I have lived parts of my life back in Nigeria. So it's my parents were very traditional upbringing. I'm firstborn as well. So of course, I was the guinea pig. My parents, they're a lot different on my younger sister now than they were with me, but it's really good to see. But yeah, they were very, obviously growing up Nigerian parents, you gotta be a doctor, you gotta be an engineer, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. It was good in the sense that they told me to actually try hard for something that you enjoy. But I think at a very early age, it was very much, you have to do that one thing because you don't want to disappoint them. Like you have to do that one thing because you don't want to, because obviously it's your parents. They want you to be happy, but you don't want to disappoint them as well. So that I was very focused, and that's sort of the reason why I dropped my more creative side, because I used to love making videos when I was in primary school and just as I was going into secondary school. But the upbringing was, like, on me, it was a lot tougher than it has been on my younger siblings. But it's been good to see my parents change and sort of adapt to the culture. They've adapted to the culture really well. Whereas at first, maybe they're a little bit stuck in their own ways with how they wanted to raise me and the rest of the kids. But like I would say I wouldn't change anything. It's taught me, like, the way that the lessons they have taught me in my upbringing, lessons that I still remember to this day. I remember, I've got a little story. I remember my dad, just little lessons. Like, my dad was changing a tire. At the time, he said to me, he's like, just come outside and watch me. And at the time, I'm thinking, why? I'm playing my games. Why do I need to go and watch you change a tire? Like, why do I need to learn this stuff? Obviously, you're young, you're a brat, you're just like, you're like, why do I need to do things? But I went outside, just spoke to him, just watched him. And then it was actually recently when I had a flat tire. I was driving down Crown Street here in Sydney, got a flat tire. Obviously, that memory springs back. I know how to change the tire now, do everything I need to do. And it was just so much less stress and those little life lessons that you retain. I had to text my dad. I had to say, I remember that time that I was being annoying and didn't want to come and watch you change the tire. I'm just glad you actually not forced me, but recommended me to come and watch you do those little life lesson tasks, because it really does pay off in the long run. And there are a lot of things my dad used to tell me that things are starting to click. They're starting to make more sense, whereas they didn't make sense when I was a kid. Right.
It sounds like that's a great story. It sounds like obviously, I mean, you mentioned that your parents were strict, but kind of from what you're saying, it sounds like you had quite like a good relationship with them in terms. Well, obviously, you had a good relationship with them, but would you say it was quite like a communicative relationship as well? Like, it's like, I mean, or was it a bit of the and again, while it's still being good, was it kind of a bit of the kind of classic, like, you know, sometimes with you know, particularly African parents or just migrant parents in general, there can be a bit of that kind of gap between, you know, they're from Africa, you know, they're from Nigeria, but you were born and raised in the West to a certain extent. Like, did you find that kind of disconnect a lot, or did you find it was quite an easy bridge between the two?
I found it was more of a disconnect, because my parents, obviously, it was age, and it was like they had me when they were a little bit older, and then the cultural disconnect, there was a little bit of a disconnect. So it was hard for me to. It's only until recently I've started getting very close to my parents. But when I was younger, I found it hard to actually tell them about just things I was dealing with, or I'm not proud to admit, but a lot of the times you have to sort of you keep things from your parents, or you bend the truth, or you that's something that you had to do because one, you didn't want to disappoint, and two, you think that they wouldn't understand and they wouldn't get it. So admittedly, that's something that was a big thing in my life. There was that little bit of a disconnect. Like I said, as I've seen them evolve and as I've seen them become more attuned to the culture, that's why I think I've been able to open up to my parents a lot more. I've been able to be more honest with them. I don't have to keep as much with them.
I'm sure moving out helped a little bit as well.
moving out helped a lot. The independence is a good drug. It's it allows you to, it grows you exponentially. It's really nice.
No, I'm moving out this year, so I've anyone I know who's like around, because you're what, 24, right?
I'm 28 actually.
28, right? Sorry, okay, I was close, clearly. Either way, like everyone who's kind of within my age group generally, I see, and I'm just like, all the ones that I moved to, I'm like, oh, I can't wait. But bro, one thing that caught my eye, actually, I mean, you said that you know, obviously born here, but then you lived in Nigeria for a little bit, and then you were back here. So what's the timeline with that? And what was that like, actually being in a place? Because Australia, obviously, there aren't a massive amount of, there are a lot of black people here, but not a massive amount, and definitely not when you would have been like a kid and stuff like that. So the first question is, what's the timeline on that? Like, when were you here? When were you there? And the second question is, what was it like seeing that kind of cultural difference at that age?
Yeah, so I was born here, and then a year after I was born, moved to we were living in Nigeria for a little bit. It wasn't even that long. I think we moved back to Australia when I was 3 or 4. Moved back to Australia when I was 3 or 4, and then that's where I've spent most of my my schooling was done here in Australia, which is like I'm really grateful for. So, but because I was very young while we're living in Nigeria, it's not something that was really ingrained in my mind. But what you said about there's not many Africans here, I feel over the States, like in Melbourne, because I've lived in Melbourne for a long period of my life. I've only been living here in Sydney for 4 years now. Oh, wow. I find the culture the African culture in Melbourne is a lot strong. Maybe I'm just not seeing it, but I feel it's a lot stronger than it is here in Sydney.
Okay.
I made a little video because I was freshly moved to Sydney. Well, not freshly, it's been 3 years. But I didn't have many African friends here in Sydney. Whereas I had that really strong connection in Melbourne. That very I had family friends that lived in Melbourne. I have people I've met throughout living in Melbourne. But here in Sydney, I didn't feel that community. So I really wanted to come here and help to build that as well. Just go to more events, meet more people, make more connections. I was feeling that's what I really needed to do here in Sydney. Whereas I think it was handed to me in Melbourne through family, friends, and through having that like richer culture in Melbourne.
And I love that, because I think one thing that I find quite unique about the African/Black experience here is that the difference between England and America, because I'm obviously from the UK originally, and I lived in America for a few years of my life as well. It's already established, and so while obviously you kind of have you kind of get the kind of pleasure of obviously kind of being around, being seen, at the same time, when in this place you get to actually be a part of making it. Like, again, the events that you host and being a part of that we've seen each other at, like, it's not just an event, it's actually like, this is actually kind of establishing roots in this place as a people. And it's interesting that you say that about Sydney though, because I remember when I first moved here, I remember when I visited Sydney from Melbourne, I remember initially seeing more Black people in Sydney than there were in Melbourne at the time. Now, I was living in quite a mostly white area. But however, the last few years, I mean, obviously everything with the nightlife, everyone from Sydney, you know, I've got some family in Sydney as well. Everyone will say like, oh, like it's like, but they like it more here. But I'm like, I could swear there's still more of you guys there.
It's like, well, it's like they're hiding in places.
Yeah.
I just don't know where to look.
Like,
yeah. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead, man. Finish that.
Yeah. I've just always been, because I know the areas I've lived in while I've been in Sydney, they're not predominantly, like, they don't predominantly have many Africans. And I think that's a part of, like, I don't often go to Western Sydney, but I know there's a big African culture there in Western Sydney. I think it was just, I knew where to look. I was part of those groups while I was in Melbourne. Like, I was living in the West. I did have a lot of friends in, like, Central, like around Richmond, those areas.
Yeah.
But most of my family friends I'd met through family, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's really where those connections came from. Whereas in Sydney, I'm feeling I'm having to establish that by myself. And it's a little bit harder when you're living in areas like Paddington or Bondi, like near Bondi, or like near those beachy areas. You don't really find as many. And
which general area of Sydney are you in? Because my Sydney geography is quite poor. I haven't done Sydney properly yet.
To be honest, I've been living here for 4 years and I still have trouble with it. But I'm in so I'm sort of like near Bondi and Surrey Hills area.
Right. Okay.
So that's I would say that's in a city. I think that's what they call it.
Yeah. Okay. So that would be so that you definitely probably wouldn't be getting as much, because I've been to Surrey Hills, but I've been to Bondi Beach and I didn't see a lot of us there.
Exactly. I'll go to the beach and it's just what.
Yeah. No, fair. Well, again, I really like the fact that you've kind of got that intention behind what you're doing in terms of actually establishing something here. And later this year, I'm trying to get to Sydney more and trying to do more stuff there. And because
nice.
With everything I do personally, it's by nature quite Melbourne centric. However, the last kind of year or so, I'm like not just Melbourne, but just kind of like everywhere. Like I want to get around and kind of get connected. So I really like that.
It's good as well. Like I actually didn't realize, like when I came to Melbourne, I didn't realize, because my stuff is very Sydney based. But when I went to Melbourne, I didn't realize how many it's like equal amounts of love both here and in Melbourne. So that's why I want to go between the two. Because obviously I used to live in Melbourne, living in Sydney. It's good to have that audience.
100%. 100%. Which part of Melbourne were you in?
I lived in the West. So like, Geelong, Point Cook, that area. Yeah. So I lived, that's where I was.
Oh, nice. And now let's get a little bit more superficial. Here's the thing, I have a feeling that you're gonna hype up Melbourne, but if you had to sell Sydney to me and to the listeners and the watchers as Melburnians, why should somebody move to or go to Sydney before Melbourne?
Why should someone go to Sydney before Melbourne? The beaches here are nice. The beaches here are nice. If you want to move into a place where you don't want to be satisfied with mediocrity, you want to be always moving fast, Sydney is a lot better than Melbourne. I feel Melbourne is very relaxed, it's very chill, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're wanting to do something you're passionate about fast, if you're wanting to be proactive about it, I feel that the environment in Sydney, it complements that. I feel that Sydney is a lot quicker. It's a lot faster. Although it's expensive here. It is expensive here compared to Melbourne. But if you're looking for that self-growth, if you're looking for that development of yourself, I feel that Sydney will do that a lot quicker for you than Melbourne would. That's what I've found, at least. Yeah, fair.
Is there more?
Like I said, the beaches.
Yeah.
People are not like, what else would I say?
I will say,
people always ask me which one's better, Melbourne or Sydney, but they each have their own strengths, and not to sit on the fence, but they have their own strengths and weaknesses. It really depends on what you're looking for.
Of course. Yeah. One thing I will say, actually, again, this is just from kind of looking on Instagram, so I don't know what it's like actually being there, but it seems like you guys have more African restaurant. Oh, actually, no, we've got a lot of, East African restaurants, but you guys seem to have more West African restaurants, because we've only got some places that opened up recently. Like we've got like, you know, place like Vola Foods. There's a place that is opened recently, Aquabar.
Like, would they open around Sunshine area? Like, where are your restaurants based?
Vola is in Brunswick, which is kind of like inner north. There's another place. It's a Nigerian place. I forgot the name of it, but it's in Carlton as well. There's this place, Aquabar. I'm not sure where that is, but it just opened.
Those places are quite central as well, which is really good. Like, it's easily accessible by a lot of people.
Yeah,
we had a place like that in Newtown. I would equate Newtown to like Brunswick or South Yarra or like Chapel Street.
Yeah,
we had a place here in Sydney called Little Lagos, but I'm not sure if it's still open.
It closed and then they reopened, which I was very relieved about, because I've been following their Instagram for years, so I was heartbroken when I saw it close. And then they're back. Yeah,
it feels like I'm at home whenever I'm there. The food
it's just got to be the best feeling, man.
It's really nice. It is really nice. But in terms of African food here, I feel that, because to be honest, that's the only place I do know of here in Sydney that really does food like that. Maybe I haven't searched enough, and maybe because I'm Nigerian, that's the only one I know. But I do want to find more places here in Sydney. But that's the one I do know of, and then that's the one I'm gonna plug them real quick. They're really good. Really good.
No. Go ahead. Go crazy. It must be. I'm sure Little Lagos is. I know it's gonna be fantastic. I can't wait to go there. I mean, obviously the jollof will be a bit weird, but it's cool. I'm still looking forward to it, regardless.
How are you going to say slander on the Nigerian jollof?
I have to. It's law. It's law at this point.
Yeah.
But I think we're pretty much coming to the end of it. But I'll ask a few more questions. This will probably this won't be so much radio stuff, probably more my personal channel stuff. But I love to anyone who knows me kind of person is, I'm like a very open guy. I'm a big believer in vulnerability, like kind of, being open about stuff, kind of mental health, etc., man. And kind of a bit separate from the rest of the stuff we were talking about. I want to just talk about, obviously, you're 28 now, you're working in your career, you've got TikTok going, you're quite established in your thing. Like, how has it been? Like, how was lockdown for you, kind of mental health wise, particularly living alone? Just kind of being separated from everyone, but then you're actually on your own and stuff like that. How was that? And with everything you do, where do you find the space to actually kind of be with yourself when you have all these interests and all these kind of things you want to do? Like how do you actually kind of balance the mental health aspect? Because obviously you do a lot of things that bring you joy, but you still need that time. How, like, what were both of those like, lockdown and then kind of balancing everything you do in terms of the pressure and the stress of it?
So when lockdown started, I was actually at it was a busy time in my life. I was going through a lot of things. Recently went through a breakup. Had just moved into this new place and was in a job that was, I think I mentioned it before, was in a job that was stressing me out. So coming into lockdown, I knew I had to change. Like, I had to change a lot of things in myself. And talking about vulnerability, it was a time when, a lot of guys just said to yourself, "Oh, just like you need to push through it. Don't worry about it. Push it to the side." But I found that because of lockdown and because I lived alone. I barely had any furniture in this place, but I had to allow myself to be sad and to feel pain, because there's nowhere else. You can't just really distract yourself because you're literally by yourself. It's quiet. I didn't even have my speaker set up yet. So you have to actually sit down and process those thoughts. So something I did a lot of during lockdown and right before I started making videos, I was reading books. There was a book I read called it's escaping my mind right now. It'll come back to me, but I was reading a book, and it was really good in terms of doing shadow work to figure out why you are and how why you react to certain situations. And I was also doing a lot of meditation and writing in my diary. So every morning I would wake up and I would meditate. I would do a little bit of physical activity. Like I have a weight set outside, but it was just establishing that routine, meditating, writing, and just figuring things out, just allowing yourself to actually feel instead of distracting yourself or pushing it to the side. And I think that really strengthened my mental health in that initial period of lockdown. And then that's when I started to make the decision of going into content creation. So at the time, obviously, you go through a lot of self-doubt, you go through a lot of sadness, and it's hard to pull yourself through that. But then when I found myself, actually, the process of making the videos was bringing me joy. It wasn't really the posting it and getting the attention. It was the process of making the videos, because I was catching myself laughing. I was catching myself laughing in the middle of it. There were even some takes I would ruin it because I was laughing, but I still have all those videos to this day in my drafts. You'd be enjoying yourself in the process of making something. And it was a lesson that I sort of brought into when I came out of lockdown, and everything I do now, it's finding joy in the present and the process of doing things instead of the outcome. That was a little lesson I learned accidentally while I was trying to develop during lockdown. And those are the sort of things I've kept to. I've still write in my diary every now and again. Don't meditate as much as I do, but I do meditate when I feel myself feeling very scattered. If I need to like collect my thoughts or just recenter myself, that's something that I just fall back on, because it was something that helped me at a time when things were a lot harder than this. No, definitely. I love that, man. And just because that's something I kind of be working on as well, kind of being more present and not kind of worrying about, you know, what happened in the past or what you can't control is going to happen in the future. Would you also say, because this is something that you mentioned earlier, would you also say that kind of, I guess, reconnecting to something you enjoyed, because reconnecting something you enjoyed as a child is also kind of part of it as well? I mean, because like you mentioned, you used to love making videos, like, and you know, when you grow up and stuff like that, like from a kid to, you know, to a man, really, like, and what happens for women as well, of course, just adults in general. But like that loss of connection with what you liked doing when you were a kid, you know what I mean? And like, so did you find that it was kind of almost like reconnecting to that kind of, this phrase is quite overused, but it's a good phrase, kind of, it is kind of connecting to your inner child as well, would you say? That's actually something that's one of the main things I preach. Just making sure that you do take care of that inner child. Like I'm always, that's why I never believe in taking myself too seriously. I always, because if you think about a child, they'll do whatever and they won't really care about what people around think of them. They'll just do what they want, and that comes, like, I'm still very heavily involved with, I love my gaming, something I loved to do as a child. I loved watching movies. I loved analyzing movies as a kid as well. So when I do that now,
anime as well,
yes. In
fact, I'm gonna have to get your Switch code after this.
Yes, I'll give you my friend code. But even with anime, that's something I watched as a kid, something that taught me a lot of lessons. So when I go back and watch old anime I used to grow up with, as well as new stuff that's coming out, it makes that inner child a little bit happy, and it gives you a little bit more fulfillment. So I always tell people, just don't forget about your inner child. You can be serious, like do like work on your career, work on your relationships, be serious in your relationships, but nurture that inner child every now and again, because it can bring you so much joy. That's what I found during, I used to love making videos as a kid. I used to love watching videos as a kid. So being able to be in that position, something that my inner child, like my younger self, looked at and aspired to, is just, it's very motivating. It's wholesome. It's really nice. You get this warm feeling. It's something that you keep on something that you want to keep on cultivating, keep on doing.
Definitely. And no doubt as well, it kind of gives it kind of also builds your security, like kind of your sense of kind of security and stuff like that. Because I mean, you're doing what's true. Like obviously, I mean, everybody needs a career. Everybody needs to, like you said, everyone needs to kind of be serious, right? But if it's just that, and you're kind of not doing that, it like connecting to that kind of inner child, it builds kind of who you are, because you're more in touch with who you are, and you kind of almost walk in those kind of more serious spaces.
It's more your like core self, because if you think about it, we're all still our kid self. We just have all these like societal pressure. We have all these things stacked on top. What I should be doing, how I should be working, how I should be dressing. That's just really your environment that's just stacking things on top. But if you get to the core of it, that's who you're that kid who didn't really care about all these outside pressures.
No, definitely. Well, yeah, man, like I think I could literally keep talking. I could keep talking for hours. This has been really good. But we'll probably wrap it up here. But I just want to say again, Onye, thanks for your time, man. It's been a real pleasure having you. Oh, absolute pleasure, man. I'm keen to because I'll be in Sydney a few times this year. I'm not sure when, but I'll be in Sydney. So
when you're here, let me know. We'll have a good time.
I definitely will. But yeah, man, thanks for your transparency. Thanks for coming through. Obviously, I know you're a busy guy. So again, your time is appreciated. I love everything you said. And yeah, again, next time you're in Melbourne, bro, if you want to get another interview actually live in the studio too, just let me know.
Oh, that would be dope. That would actually be dope. I think I'll be coming back in Feb. I think I'll be coming because I want to come more. I want to come to Melbourne, see my family, see my friends a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
1800 for the new rusty. Man, grab it and kick it like rugby. I was on a tea house, head back dusty. Still waking up to news and country. Bore on the off and a band or profit also lovely. My little bro shit that I pack and flushed it.